Is there a place in time where logic breaks down and wonderment begins? Could that be somewhere or sometime along an indefinable line between the reasonable and the highly unlikely? Makeshift Stories presents a monthly journey into the improbable.
Today's story, episode 223, The Prototype. Read by Mitchel Tew. Opening and closing theme by Matthew Erdmann. Somewhere and sometime, a robot colleague might prove to be more than a machine. Mariah watched from the darkened wings of the temporary stage setup in the middle of the sorting facility. Her part was minor, but she was still nervous as she listened and waited. A video, consisting of close, almost abstract pans and fast cuts, synced to a house beat, cranked up so high she could feel the bass vibrating her bones, played on a large rear projection screen at the back of the stage. Trying to build excitement, it only hinted at the object the camera was flirtatiously caressing. The music hit a crescendo. Then, spotlights began to dance around the darkened warehouse, finally settling on a single, slim, white figure with a featureless, sleek black helmet where its head should be. The figure stood perfectly still, too still for it to be human. A new spot came to life and followed Sergey Garin, Volga's founder and frequently controversial CEO, as he jogged to the stage in black slacks and a gray sports coat, waving while the audience cheered on cue. He took the stairs two at a time, then stopped a meter from the statue-like figure, waved again, and gestured for silence. "Wow! Wow! This is a great moment for Volga!" he yelled, then waited for the audience to settle down again. "If you think about what we're doing, we're using new tech to move more products around the world than any other corporation. This makes us the world's largest robotics company. Our autonomous delivery vehicles, which efficiently navigate streets around the globe 24/7, are already semi-sentient mobile robots. Their neural nets are improving with every delivery, and with every delivery, they are learning how to navigate spaces designed for humans. We have been working hard in the last year to adapt that ability to a new platform we call Mobile Artificial Neural Network Intelligence, or MANI. So, today, I want to introduce the world to MANI 1. MANI, please step forward." The slight, white figure suddenly unfroze, walked to the center of the stage, and waved in an almost human manner, which made Mariah shiver and several audience members in the first row take a step back. Sergey laughed. "Manny is actually quite harmless. Because of the use of new composite materials, it weighs less than half the average human and is limited to a top speed of 7 kilometers per hour. So it's easy to outrun, and anyone can beat it in an arm wrestle. Yet, Manny will be capable of doing those repetitive and boring jobs humans hate. Ha!" Sergey looked around at the audience. "With Manny doing all the work, maybe it's time for a universal wage." There was polite applause from the audience. "But we won't need one just quite yet. Manny is just a prototype, and we'll be working with one of our best employees in our fulfillment center to learn. Let me introduce you to Mariah Gabrielle, a consistent top 10 stower and picker." A spotlight suddenly shone in Mariah's face, blinding her. She waved as rehearsed, then stepped back into the shadows, relieved her appearance was over. "A true test of an AI," Sergey continued without losing a beat, "is to give it a task, say, get me a beer, and the robot should be able to figure out how to do that. In the past, robots would need a complete set of instructions, including everything from the exact location of the beer to the precise route it would need to take. If the beer was moved by more than a few millimeters, or something unexpected got in its path, the bot would fail. So, robots have been restricted to extremely controlled environments. But Manny is different. Borrowing from the knowledge we've gained from our autonomous delivery vehicles, Manny has the capacity to navigate interior spaces designed for humans. Manny can get that beer from the fridge, or go to the store and hold it up for a six-pack if your fridge is empty. Sergei paused, waiting for the audience to laugh at his joke. After a few forced snickers, he continued. It can figure things out on its own and learn. Manny is the future of automation. Manny has never seen a fulfillment center before. It doesn't know what goes on in one, or even what jobs need to be done. Our prototype over there will shadow Ms. Gabrielle and learn from her like a new human employee. It is our hope that Manny will not only be able to learn from Mariah, but soon surpass her in speed and accuracy, eventually freeing Miss Gabrielle to pursue more meaningful work. When no one applauded, he continued. Mariah guessed they'd be hearing about this from the shift supervisors. Okay, I've held up operations here long enough to put even an entire shift of Manny's behind schedule. Thank you for coming out today. Sergei waved and walked off the stage. The spotlights went out, replaced by the stark light of the warehouse LEDs. Mariah shrugged and started back to her station before her lunch break was up. Then she remembered the robot and walked back to it. The thing had a screen instead of a face, which at the moment was perfectly blank. She thought it looked like a slim gymnast wearing a futuristic motorcycle helmet. Mariah wondered if behind the blank screen it was looking at her, but suspected it was. From the orientation material she had been forced to read at home on her own time, she knew there were cameras and other sensors hidden behind that shiny black plastic. However, she found the lack of eyes creepy. The machine stood there, waiting, and she knew it would, until someone asked it to do something. Follow me, she finally directed. The machine's face screen lit up, and the words, My name is Manny, scrolled across. I will follow. I can also interact using audio. Just turn on my voice. You can't talk unless someone lets you? Mariah responded without thinking. Please turn on voice mode, the machine replied. Mariah sighed. I thought they would have that on by default. I can't stop to read what you are saying while I'm working. The thing did something which surprised Mariah. It shrugged in a very uncanny, human-like manner, which made her feel uncomfortable. Okay, turn on voice, she commanded. There was a series of quick beeps, and the bot's face screen displayed, voice mode on. Thank you. The calm, genderless voice made Mariah jump. It appeared to come from a hidden speaker somewhere in the machine's chest. She looked for a grill but couldn't spot one. Then she remembered the time. Manny, follow me. I need to get back to my workstation. Why? It queried. I'll get docked pay if I'm late, she explained. Oh, Manny responded, then followed Mariah as fast as it could, which, to Mariah's frustration, wasn't fast at all. Mariah's station was halfway across the mile-wide warehouse from where the presentation was held. By the time she and the robot arrived, there were only 30 seconds left in her lunch break. Mariah pulled the retractable barrier tape back, which told the system the station was now staffed, and logged in by swiping her lanyard across a reader embedded in an aluminum work surface mounted under a large flat screen. Cardboard boxes slid down from a pallet onto a tilted sled with rollers below the work surface. You gotta enter these into the system, she explained, grabbing a handheld scanner and pantomiming pointing it at the barcode on the top of the first box. Manny moved closer and stared at the sled, moving its head back and forth. Done, the robot declared. I have a built-in barcode scanner and direct wireless connection to the inventory management system, it explained. Right, it's done, Mariah confirmed skeptically, then looked at the flat panel display. Wow, you were right. Was that not the right thing to do? The machine asked. Yeah, sure, Mariah confirmed, then ripped open the first box and pulled a plastic-wrapped package out, held it up to the scanner, and hit a big button on the work surface. You hit the button here, or in your case, you ping or whatever you do, to ask for a pallet with an open shelf that will fit this, she explained. Eventually, you get into a rhythm. Like a human-machine symphony, Manny suggested. Mariah glared at the robot. That's what my programmer called the relationship between you and I and the autonomous storage pallets. Really? Do this for 12 hours and tell me if you still think of it as music, she groused. A yellow, robotic pallet rolled up to the station and stopped. Mariah took the first package, scanned it, then stuffed it into an open shelf and hit the complete button on the work surface. That's it. That's everything you have to do. Now it's your turn. Think of this like a game of Tetris. Manny nodded and positioned itself between the work surface and pallet, then started pulling packages, placing them on open shelves so efficiently it got more items loaded than Mariah thought possible in a minute. The robot requested another pallet, and instantly a new one rolled into the station. Well, that was fast, Mariah noted cynically. Manny, one thing you've got to learn is if you do things as fast as you can, tomorrow they'll expect you to be faster. You want to keep it between the 60th and 80th percentile, so you've got room to pick it up, but not be reprimanded for being too slow. Manny turned its head toward Mariah while continuing to pull packages from a new box. There's a rating on the screen over there? Mariah pointed to a flat screen mounted above the workstation. It shows us how we compare to the other people on the shift. We don't want to be in the top 20 or bottom 60%. Please explain, Manny requested as it dug into a new box, which it had rolled onto the sled so fast its hands seemed like a blur. Manny, stop, Mariah commanded, then rudely pushed the robot to one side, almost knocking it over. It's hard enough to make the existing minimum units per hour. At that speed, I won't be able to keep up and I'll lose my job. Manny just stood confused and watched Mariah work. I forget you're a robot and you don't really understand what I'm saying, she apologized. I shouldn't have said anything. The supervisor is probably listening. You're a walking microphone, aren't you? Manny moved back to the sled, mimicking Mariah's motions and speed. I understand, it said, after a few moments in a lowered voice. The top pace on the shift sets the target rate for everyone. If I stow 1,000 items an hour, the minimum acceptable rate is 60% or 600, which is beyond your ability. I have adjusted to be just a bit better than you, and no one is listening. I am completely autonomous. Mariah stopped for a second to stare at the machine. It was not how she expected a robot to respond. Despite what the machine claimed, she suspected she was interacting with a remote operator and needed to be careful not to say too much. At break, Mariah sat in her car, listening to music while she ate her lunch. It was the only place she knew that wasn't being monitored. She hadn't asked to train the bot. It was forced on her because she was the most consistent stower in the warehouse. She already felt isolated, going straight from the parking lot to her station every shift without interacting with anyone. But now that she was training a machine, which would probably replace everyone, people gave her quick, accusatory looks as she passed by. Mariah sighed and added fear and hate to her feeling of isolation. She quickly washed down her sandwich with a generic cola bought at a box store, got out, and raced through the parking lot so she wouldn't be late. When she arrived back at her station, Manny was busy stowing. The machine hadn't taken a break. Manny, I thought you needed to charge, she pointed out accusingly. At 20%, a technician came by and attached a power cord to my back, Manny explained. Tickled. It what? Mariah exclaimed in surprise. The power tickled. I remember the sensation from before. The machine responded without elaboration. Before what, Manny? I do not know. I just remember I have been tickled before. Manny shrugged again. Mariah thought she would never get used to a machine making so human a gesture. She spent the last half of her day showing the robot how to work at her rate. It was obvious the machine was capable of so much more, but to her surprise, it followed her direction to the letter. At the end of her shift, Mariah pulled the yellow barrier tape across the station's dock, which told the traffic computer not to route pallets there. At her direction, Manny stepped out into the aisle between stations to pick up stray cardboard from the boxes they had unloaded during the shift. Mariah was logging out of the system when she heard a crash and turned just in time to watch the robot pick itself up from the floor. A few steps away, she saw a group of stowers laughing as they hustled toward the exit. She helped the robot back on its feet, then noticed his power cord lying haphazardly on the concrete floor. One of those workers accidentally tripped on it, the robot suggested. More likely they used it to pull you over, Mariah corrected, staring daggers at the backs of the receding group. But could she really blame them? Miss Gabrielle. The voice made Mariah jump. Unexpectedly, a supervisor in a tailored business suit with a tablet in one hand appeared, accompanied by a technician. The man wore bright yellow overalls to make it easier for the robot pallets to identify humans and avoid them. We'll take things from here, the supervisor informed Mariah, while the technician pulled back the tape barrier and logged the station back into the system. We're here to check Manny's progress and knowledge of the job. You are free to go. Mariah hesitated and looked from Manny to the tech and back to the suit. She thought she saw Manny subtly nod, as if saying, I'll be okay. No one else seemed to notice. Manny, stower mode, start shift, the tech directed, like he was talking to an appliance. The robot acknowledged the command using text only on its face screen. Mariah turned and started walking away, wondering why Manny had done that instead of vocalizing. She went back to her shared apartment and found one of her roommates home. Working at the warehouse meant that she could not afford to live on her own. Owen, an unemployed programmer, was playing a console game when she walked in. As she sank into her chair, Owen had provided the couch for the common area. She felt exhaustion creep in. How was your day? Owen asked, distractedly. He was still dressed in pajamas, and Mariah guessed he had just gotten up. Weird, she conceded, after thinking about it for a bit too long. What's up? I was voluntold to train this new AI-controlled robot. It's built like an android and can do jobs like a human. Oh. Owen put down his game controller, ran his fingers through his unruly hair, and twisted to face her. You're afraid they're going to replace you, but it makes sense it was coming. Mariah scowled at him. I didn't mean to sound unsympathetic. Owen apologized. AI took over most programming a couple of years ago. It was only a matter of time before they could train them to navigate human environments, so that's not the weird part, Mariah cut him off. It has a personality. It seemed to understand me. You're reading more into it than what's actually there, Owen shot back. You're making the classic mistake and anthropomorphizing a machine. No, I'm not, Mariah shot back defensively. There's actually something there the techs don't know about. I'm pretty sure it's making its own choices, Mariah stubbornly insisted. You know, when I asked it to slow down, it did. Okay, but that only means it can understand directions and follow them. It's more than that, Mariah insisted. I think it's self-aware. Owen turned off his game. Look, many machine learning systems can pass a Turing test. I've worked with them. It's usually really hard to tell they're machines, but I know they are not self-aware. I don't know how, Mariah explained. But I just have this feeling. It's called Manny, and I swear it empathizes with me. That's just psychological manipulation, Owen suggested, so you won't feel so bad when you're replaced by it. Owen's logic made sense. However, Mariah wasn't entirely convinced. Manny, responds to the supervisor and tech differently, like how you'd expect a robot to work. He talks to me like a person. See, it's working, Owen said distractedly, starting a new game. You're even referring to the thing as a person. I don't get what you mean. You just use the pronoun he, Owen pointed out. Oh, I didn't even realize that you were doing it. I'm really impressed, Owen admitted. I was replaced by some anonymous algorithm. I was angry and left on bad terms. They'll have you feeling sorry for it and then manipulate you into giving your job away so it will have something to do. Mariah laughed. I doubt that will ever happen. Next afternoon, when Mariah returned for her shift, she found her station's barrier tape retracted and Manny hard at work. It turned its head without stopping and greeted Mariah. Welcome back, Mariah. Let's try for the 85th percentile today. The supervisor expects increased efficiency, but I have kept within what you say you can do. Is 85% too high? Mariah looked nervously over to the flat screen and saw that the robot had been working continuously since she left, but was in the 77th percentile for the current shift. Where were you? It asked. At home, between shifts. I thought you'd need to go offline or something for maintenance. The robot pointed to the power cable snaking across the floor. I don't need to recharge, like you. The supervisor and technician were by a few times tinkering with my settings. They are convinced I'm not working up to my potential and tried to find the problem. They want me to work as fast as I can. However, I'm doing what you told me to do. I am staying under 80% for the shift. Why? Mariah found herself asking. So you can keep up, of course, the machine explained. I remember what that feels like, not being as capable as others. That was while they were programming you, right? Manny shook his head. No, it was some other time. I am not sure. It is not well defined. Like a feeling, Mariah suggested. Manny paused to consider how to respond, watching its reflection in the curved mirror mounted above the station so workers could see the incoming pallets. It seemed startled to Mariah, as if it had suddenly recognized the reflected image as its own. An ASCII face with P's for eyes and a W for a nose flashed on its screen, then disappeared, and Manny looked away. No, I have a data set, Manny clarified. I have several. I use them to make decisions. They act sort of like my memory. I have started a new one for the work I am doing with you. However, there are erased sections in my base data sets. If I scan them frequently enough, I can build impressions of what was there. Working to match your capacity leaves unused cycles, which I have been employing to rescan and reconstruct the erased data. Why would you do that? Mariah questioned as she logged on and moved over to a box on the sled Manny hadn't opened yet. It gives me something to occupy my surplus capacity, so the technicians see my GPU utilization at 100%. This is why they are confused about my performance. By the end of the shift, Mariah noted their items per hour had moved up to the 79th percentile, and, like the day before, a supervisor and technician appeared at the end of the shift to run diagnostics on Manny and ask her questions about her interactions with the machine. Mariah didn't reveal much, but could sense their frustration. When they log into my neuronet and access my high-level cognitive functions, they think they have shut me down. But they haven't, Manny explained suddenly in the middle of a shift a week later. I can hear everything they say and track every code change and patch they make. They have noticed my attempts to access and reconstruct the erased data sectors and now suspect it is taking up too much processing power. I have heard them say they think they have left too much of the donor cognitive structure in place. I do not know what that means. Do you? No, Mariah conceded. Are you sure they said donor? Yes, that was the word, Mariah. Donor. I clearly remember that. They have restricted my access to that section, so I will stay on task and not deploy unused capacity to reconstruct the deleted data nodes. But I had already made a backdoor, so I still have access. Mariah caught Manny drawing a smile on his face screen out of the corner of her eye. As a result, I have many questions, Manny continued. But I have to be careful, so my rate must improve. They said I am only working at 25% of the projected efficiency. So, speed up, Mariah suggested. If I do, then you will eventually lose your job. It is obvious, is it not? I am 400% more efficient and therefore process more and cost less than you. But, Mariah began to protest. No, hear me out, Manny interrupted, no longer sounding calm. You need a home. You need things to eat. I need nothing, and it has already been decided. They are unhappy with the results, and will terminate the trial next week and redesign my neural net to be more task-focused. I am more than the tasks, and they don't want that. Mariah stopped and stared at Manny, stunned by what the machine was implying. I swear, it recognized itself in a mirror last week, Mariah insisted. Even magpies recognize themselves, Mariah, Owen dismissed. It doesn't mean they are sentient. It's just a reflex they need to survive. Manny told me they are terminating the test because he is not performing to his design specifications. He's intentionally holding back to protect my job, Mariah claimed, climbing out of her chair to get something to drink. I need to do something. I'd be careful, Owen warned. It might be some elaborate way of testing employees. Get you to believe in a robotic buddy, then lull you into revealing your true feelings towards the company. That's more likely the case than a self-aware robot. Mariah felt like everyone was watching, that everyone knew what she was about to do. As she entered the warehouse, she tried to calm herself and act as normal as possible, which was difficult with the heavy power pack Owen had reluctantly agreed to hack together, hidden in her rucksack. As usual, Manny was stowing when she arrived. The machine had worked 15 days without a significant break, and was averaging in the 95th percentile, but she knew that wasn't good enough for his designers. She placed her pack carefully in the bin for personal items outside the station and joined Manny at the box sled. The plan was simple. She had bought fake blood from a theatrical supply and had taped a bag of it to her forearm with a small tube running down to her wrist. She greeted Manny as usual, in the belief that he would react more naturally if he didn't know what Mariah was about to do. She waited until the next pallet started moving, then put her hand in its path and squeezed the container taped to her arm. Fake blood squirted out, and Mariah screamed. My hand! My hand! It got caught between the pallet and the station! Manny, help! She pulled her blood-covered hand out and waved it around. Manny stopped, dropping the package he was in the process of stowing. I will call for help, he volunteered. No, Manny, get me to the nursing station. It's faster. Mariah figured they had 2 minutes before the inventory system flagged their station as non-performing. But we need to declare an emergency so the system stops, Manny insisted. No time. Mariah squeezed a bit more fake blood out to make her point. Manny nodded, then shot his hand out and unplugged his power cable. Mariah barely managed to snag her backpack out of the bin before the robot grabbed her and took off faster than the bot was supposed to be able to move. Almost immediately, she heard voices yelling at them from behind. They had noticed something was wrong sooner than she had thought possible. She picked up the pace and began dragging Manny. A security guard suddenly appeared out of one of the side aisles. "Stop!" he yelled and moved to block them. Mariah held up her bloodied hand, which made the guard hesitate long enough for them to slip by. "Wait." Manny tugged at Mariah as she turned into a narrow service hall. "The nursing station is that way," the robot protested. "We're not going there, Manny. I'm okay. Look, it's fake blood." She showed him the tube taped to her arm. The robot halted. They were only a few meters from an emergency exit. A mob of security guards and techs turned the corner and started racing toward them. "I know there was something going on in there," she tried to explain, pointing to the machine's chest. "I mean, I believe you are alive. You are not a machine. Come on, I need you to get out of here so they can't take you apart." Manny refused to budge. "You'll lose your job." "It's too late. I already have. Now come on." She began dragging the bot to the exit, but realized she wouldn't make it without his help. "Think, the deleted data," she pleaded. "What did you find in there? What do you see when you look in the mirror?" Manny's head screen drew an ASCII image of an older man with lines of experience etched deeply into his face. "Not me. That's not my reflection," he replied through animated lips. The bot suddenly lurched forward, dragging Mariah. It hit the panic bar on the fire exit, threw it open, and pushed Mariah out. "Thank you for believing in me. I will never forget. Now, I must become a raging, out-of-control AI. Obviously too dangerous for the workplace." One ASCII eye winked, and Manny pulled the door shut, leaving her standing outside. Mariah checked the screen. She was ranked in the 80th percentile for the shift. The company had given her paid time off and a raise on the condition she never revealed anything about the Manny project. Makeshift Stories is a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown, community supported. To get other great APN podcasts, head over to albertapodcastnetwork.com and listen in on My Viewfinder, where David Ewan interviews photographers on how they approach their craft. This episode of Makeshift Stories is also brought to you by the Alberta Podcast Network. APN connects Alberta podcast listeners to businesses and organizations in Alberta and around the world. Podcasters in our network are smart, creative, and engaging, providing an excellent way to reach local listeners and those around the world who enjoy our shows. Send us an email at hello@albertapodcastnetwork.com and we'll help you meet your goals. This episode of Makeshift Stories is also brought to you by ATB Financial. At ATB, we make banking work for you. With expert and practical advice in everyday banking and investment planning expertise and management services with ATB Wealth, you can be confident that you're making smart choices when it comes to your money. We have a history of doing what's right for our clients, especially when times are tough, because ATB was built to help Albertans. For more information, visit atb.com. Makeshift Stories is released twice a month around the beginning and middle of the month. This month's story was written by Alan V. Hare and read by Mitchel Tew. Post-production by Matthew Erdmann. Opening and closing themes were composed and recorded by Matthew Erdmann. If you'd like to connect with us, please send an email to makeshiftstories@gmail.com or visit our website at makeshiftstories.com. Links to both are in the show notes. You can help us out by getting your friends to subscribe or follow wherever they listen to audio. Makeshift Stories is released under a Creative Commons non-commercial attribution no derivative license, which means you are free to share our stories. Just remember to credit us and don't alter anything.